A clash of kings. The red comet streaked across the sky. A bleeding gash in the firmament that set the seven kingdoms ablaze with rumor and prophecy. In the crisp air of the north, Bran Stark, crippled but unbowed, gazed up at the celestial harbinger from the back of his gentle giant, Hodor. "Fire and blood," he whispered, the words of House Targaryen, echoing in his mind. Winterfell, once a bastion of Stark power, now stood diminished. Robb, the young wolf, had taken most of their forces south to avenge their father and rescue their sisters. Bran, a boy of 8, found himself the Stark in Winterfell, a lord in all but name. Miles away, in the Riverlands, Robb Stark's army moved with the swift brutality of the dire wolf that adorned their banners. Fresh from his victory at the Whispering Wood, where he'd captured the Kingslayer, Robb now turned his attention to Tywin Lannister's hosts. "The North remembers your grace," Lord Umber growled, his massive frame dwarfing the War Council table. "And winter is coming for House Lannister." Robb, barely a man grown yet bearing the weight of a crown, nodded grimly. The title of king in the North sat uneasily upon his young shoulders, but he wore it with the same determination that had seen him undefeated on the battlefield. In King's Landing, a very different kind of battle raged. Tyrion Lannister, newly appointed as Hand of the King, waded through the cesspool of lies and intrigue that was the royal court. His mismatched eyes missed nothing as he worked tirelessly to shore up the defenses of a city that despised him. "If we don't act soon, we'll be besieged by an army of Baratheons," Tyrion warned his sister, Queen Regent Cersei. Her emerald eyes flashed with barely contained fury. "Then crush them," she spat. "You're supposed to be so clever. Prove it." Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen and her ragged band of followers trudged across the red wastes. Her dragons, still small but growing daily, screeched for meat. The Khaleesi's resolve was tested with each step through the barren landscape. But the fire in her violet eyes never dimmed. "We must find water, Khaleesi," Ser Jorah Mormont, her faithful bear, pleaded. "The people are dying." Daenerys turned to him, her silver-gold hair whipping in the hot wind. "We are the blood of the dragon," she said firmly. "And dragons do not wilt in the heat." Back in Westeros, Stannis Baratheon brooded in his island fortress of Dragonstone. The Red Priestess Melisandre whispered in his ear, her ruby choker pulsing with an inner light. "You are Azor Ahai reborn," she intoned, her red eyes reflecting the flames of her god. "The prince that was promised. With the power of Valhalla, you will claim your rightful throne." Stannis ground his teeth, his decision made. "Prepare the fleet," he commanded. "We sail for King's Landing." In the lush paradise of Highgarden, Renly Baratheon held court, basking in the adoration of his followers. His new bride, Margaery Tyrell, sat beside him, a vision of beauty and ambition. "My love," Margaery purred, her hand on Renly's arm. "When will you march on King's Landing? The people cry out for their true king." Renly smiled, all charm and confidence. "Soon, my dear. First, we must deal with my dark brother Stannis." As the forces of would-be kings gathered, the Night's Watch ventured beyond the wall. Jon Snow, bastard son of Ned Stark, marched with his brothers into the haunted forest. The wildlings were gathering under Mance Rayder. But Jon sensed a greater threat lurking in the lands of Always Winter. "We're ranging into hell itself," Dolorous Edd muttered beside him. Jon's hand tightened on Longclaw's pommel. "Whatever's out there," he said, "we are the shields that guard the realms of men." The clash of kings had begun in earnest. Robb Stark's forces struck hard and fast, earning him the moniker the Young Wolf. His strategy of dividing the Lannister forces proved effective, but at a cost. With each victory, the price in lives grew steeper. In a moment of vulnerability, Robb found solace in the arms of Jeyne Westerling, a noble girl who tended his wounds after a battle. His moment of weakness would have far-reaching consequences, though he could not know it then. Meanwhile, Theon Greyjoy, Robb's childhood, friend and host stayed eternally, returned to the Iron Islands. His homecoming was far from warm. His father Balon viewing him as soft and green. While the mainlanders squabble, Balon sneered. "We will take what is ours with iron and salt." Theon, desperate to prove himself, made a fateful decision. He would capture Winterfell, the castle he'd grown up in, and show his worth as a true Ironborn. The assault on Winterfell was swift and unexpected. Bran and Rickon Stark, defenseless against the Ironborn. Raiders were forced to flee into the night with their protectors, Hodor and Osha. Theon, drunk on his easy victory, declared himself Prince of Winterfell, unaware of the doom he had brought upon himself. In King's Landing, Tyrion played the Game of Thrones with a master's touch. He outmaneuvered his sister at every turn, shoring up the city's defenses and weeding out traitors. But his actions, necessary as they were, earned him no love from the smallfolk or the nobility. Tyrion's most cunning move was to send Princess Myrcella to Dorne, both to secure an alliance and to protect her from the coming storm. Cersei's rage at this perceived betrayal knew no bounds, but Tyrion stood firm. "You'll thank me when Stannis is battering down our gates," he told her. As if summoned by Tyrion's words, Stannis Baratheon's fleet appeared on the horizon. The Battle of the Blackwater was about to begin, a conflagration that would decide the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. Tyrion had prepared well. Wildfire, the volatile substance that burned with an eerie green flame, was their secret weapon. As Stannis' ships entered the bay, the trap was sprung. The Blackwater erupted in emerald flames, devouring ships and men alike. The battle raged through the night, the sky lit by wildfire and the clash of steel. Tyrion, against all expectations, led a sortie that turned the tide of the battle. But victory came at a price. A vicious cut across his face that nearly took his life. Just when all seemed lost for the defenders, a new army arrived. Tywin Lannister, allied with the forces of House Tyrell, smashed into Stannis' rear, breaking the siege and saving the city. In the aftermath of the battle, the balance of power shifted once again. Tywin assumed his role as Hand of the King, relegating Tyrion to a mere footnote in the victory. Margaery Tyrell, recently widowed by Renly's mysterious death, was betrothed to King Joffrey, cementing the Lannister-Tyrell alliance. Far to the north, beyond the Wall, Jon Snow and the Night's Watch encountered the true enemy. The White Walkers, creatures of ice and death, attacked the Watch's encampment at the Fist of the First Men. The battle was brief and brutal. the undead whites overwhelming the brave brothers in black. Jon, separated from his brothers, found himself alone in the frozen wilderness. His path crossed with that of Ygritte, a fiery wildling woman who awakened feelings in him he thought long buried. "You know nothing, Jon Snow," she teased him, even as she drew him deeper into the world of the free folk. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen's fortunes changed dramatically. In the exotic city of Qarth, she encountered both opportunity and treachery. The wealthy merchant Saraxone Daxus offered her a fleet and an army in exchange for her hand in marriage, while the warlocks of the House of the Undying sought to ensnare her with their dark magics. In the House of the Undying, Daenerys faced visions of past, present, and possible futures. She saw her brother Rhaegar, heard prophecies of 3 betrayals, and glimpsed a blue winter rose growing from a chink in a wall of ice. But it was the vision of a room with a red door, her childhood home, that nearly broke her resolve. Emerging from the House of the Undying, Daenerys made her choice. She would not be a pawn in the games of Qarth. With fire and blood, she took what she needed: ships, gold, and followers. The Mother of Dragons had taken her first true steps towards reclaiming the Iron Throne. As a clash of kings drew to a close, the war-torn landscape of Westeros was forever changed. Stannis Baratheon retreated to Dragonstone, his ambitions checked but not extinguished. Robb Stark remained undefeated on the battlefield, but political missteps threatened to unravel his campaign. In King's Landing, the Lannisters appeared triumphant, but their grip on power was far from secure. And in the far north, an army of the dead marched on the wall, heralding a threat that would make the squabbles of kings seem petty by comparison. The Game of Thrones continued, its players unaware that the true battle, the Song of Ice and Fire, was only just beginning. As the dust settled on the Battle of the Blackwater, the ripples of its outcome spread across the 7 kingdoms. In King's Landing, the Lannisters basked in their victory, but the cracks in their fate were beginning to show. Tywin Lannister, now firmly in control, as Hand of the King, set about consolidating power. His daughter Cersei, bristling at being sidelined, plotted in the shadows. Joffrey, cruel and capricious as ever, reveled in his perceived invincibility, unaware of the growing discontent among the small folk. Sansa Stark, still a hostage in all but name, navigated the treacherous waters of the court with growing skill. Her dreams of knights and true love had been shattered, replaced by a steely determination to survive. In the quiet of the Godswood, she prayed for rescue, for vengeance, for home.